Hello, magnificent entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 250, woohoo! Which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/250. In today's episode, I'm going to help you structure your content so that it does its job properly. Now, we know that creating content can be a really great way to grow your audience, nurture your audience, convert people into paying clients. But if your content's not doing its job, then really you're just wasting your time. So let's dive into this episode and get your content doing its job properly. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. I've made no secret of my love of the content marketing style of business. I love creating podcasts. I love being on social media. And I think content marketing is such a great way to create connection, grow your audience, nurture your audience, and convert people into paying clients. It's a great way of delivering value and information and helping people. And it feels like a really invitation-based model of business as well, because you can lean in with really great content, but let your audience come the rest of the way and be magnetic and attract them into your business. But how do you structure that content so that it does its job? First and foremost, we need to understand what is the job of your content, because different pieces of content in your business have different jobs. And some pieces of content do lots of different jobs. They're multitaskers, and other pieces of content just have a single job. In its essence, most content needs to improve your reach, nurture your audience, invite people to connect, and convert people into paying clients, or a combination of one or a few of those things. So for example, a webinar as a piece of content, you would want it to reach, nurture, invite, and convert. A blog post or a podcast episode might do some reach, some nurture, and some invite, but the conversion happens in a sales conversation. Or you might have some posts on social media that are purely nurturing for your existing audience, and some that are really reach driven. They're going for a cold audience, and some that are completely focused on conversion. So first and foremost, when creating a piece of content, you need to be clear, what is the job of this piece of content? Does it need to reach, nurture, invite, convert, or a combination of the few? So make sure that you're really clear on that, and that you understand what a win or a tick would be for that piece of content. So if you're doing a reach-based piece of content, how many people does it need to get in front of in order to have done its job? So whenever I share something funny on my Facebook page, something that's off topic, but I know it's going to do really well for reach and engagement, I want it to reach at least 3,000 people, because that's its job. Its job is to maximize reach. If I'm doing a post on social media where, let's say I'm doing a Facebook Live that's just nurturing for my existing audience, and what I want it to do is to get lots of comments and lots of engagement and lots of people saying, oh my gosh, Tash, this is so good, thank you so much, then I might set a goal of having 250 views and 500 comments in the period that I do the Facebook Live. And that's generally a good goal for me for a nurture piece of content. So set yourself some benchmarks and start to set yourself some goals of what that piece of content needs to do. So that's number one. So you can see, by understanding what is the job that it needs to do, that's going to give you some insight into the structure. So if you're doing something that's reach orientated, then it needs much shorter structure. If you're doing something that's a conversion orientation, it might be short if it's for your warmest audience, or it might need to be long form if it's for a colder audience. So you need to think about these things when you're in the content creation process. Question number 2 is, what is the platform that you're sharing it on? Because if you're sharing it on your social media pages, people's attention spans are way shorter than if you were sharing it on a podcast, for example. If you're sharing it on TikTok, it has a very specific period of time that you can, and length that you can do it for. And if you're doing a webinar, then you might do a half-hour webinar, 45-minute webinar, or a 1-hour webinar. Some people even do 90-minute webinars, even though they say they're only going to be an hour. Guilty. So think about the platform and what is an appropriate structure for that platform. So my Facebook Live content has a specific structure that's slightly different to my pre-recorded podcast content. My podcasts are much more structured and much more streamlined and much more punchy, whereas my Facebook Lives are more of a conversation. And if there are people there live, I answer their questions whilst they're there live. If there are specific tangents that I decide that I want to go down, I will do that on a Facebook Live. I do not do that on a podcast episode. So you need to think about the platform in order to also understand what the appropriate structure is going to be. Number 3, what will appeal to my audience? So if I'm doing content that's for reach, I need to make sure that I am appealing to my coldest audience. I'm appealing to people who don't necessarily know who I am. So if I put lots of Tashisms and Lady Posse specific things into the title of that content or into the early pieces of that content, then chances are a cold audience are going to tune out. However, if I'm doing a nurture, invite, or a convert piece of content that's mostly for my warmest audiences, then speaking in terms that are kind of just our special language may improve the reach with the right people, and therefore it's going to do the right job. So think about what's going to appeal to your audience. What are they searching for at that particular point in time? What are they looking for? What's going to stop their scroll? And in most cases, if you don't know what your niche is, then you're going to have trouble with answering the what will appeal piece because you're going to be too broad in your messaging. Don't worry, if you're not clear on your niche, I have a great resource for you today. And then the fourth thing you need to work out is what is the process that you're going to take people through. So if your piece of content needs to reach, nurture, invite, and convert, then you're going to need a structured process in which you achieve all 4 of those jobs. If all you want to do is convert your warmest and hottest audience into having a conversation with you about a particular product or service, then your process might be really straightforward. It might be just a one-line email that goes out to your audience, into your mailing list, or it might be a one-line question that you ask on your Facebook page. But you need to make sure that you understand what that process is that you need to take people through. So, for example, with my cold posts on Facebook, they need to reach, so they need to speak to an audience who don't necessarily know me, don't necessarily understand the Tash Corbin way of doing things, but they are looking for specific business outcomes that I work towards with my niche. So they need to be quite tangible, quite outcome orientated. And they also need to do their job of asking people to engage or asking them to comment or posing a question or potentially showing people how what they've learned in the past may not be the right fit for their model of business. So what I'm doing in that content is not only creating reach, but also doing some early trust building by giving really tangible exercises or really practical things to implement, by calling out an industry issue that I see that is particularly prevalent and giving people a viable alternative. The other thing that I like to do with my cold audience content on Facebook is not have a straight upsell, not constantly be giving a call to action. So often I will do quick tips for cold audiences that are simply, here's a great tip, see you later, let me know if you find it helpful. So it's not necessarily saying, and you should subscribe to my audience, or you should jump onto my mailing list, or grab this freebie, or sign up to my webinar. People can get really standoffish or feel that sense of disconnect if you've given this really great tip, but you've done it through the lens of, and now I want you to take an action. So it doesn't always have to have a strong call to action in order to do its job if its job is mostly reach. If its job is nurture and invite people onto my mailing list, then I'm going to speak to a more warm audience message, and then I'm going to have that call to action on it. So when it comes to really making sure that my content does its job, I need to understand what's its number one most important job. Is there a second job that I need it to do? And should I split those 2 jobs out into 2 pieces of content? And instead of just trying to get all of your content to do all of the jobs, give different pieces of content different jobs and create a content ecosystem. So when it comes to structuring content, in most cases, there are 5 things that I do, but I do them to a different extent. So they are connect, clarify, deliver, punchline, and call to action. So as I said, with cold audience work or stuff that needs to just create reach, I might connect, clarify, deliver, and that's it. For stuff that is going to be more long-winded, so more long form, like a webinar, I will do all. For things like podcast episodes, I might connect, clarify, deliver, and then have a call to action. But in most cases, I hit these 5 pieces of the structure, depending on where that content goes. Connect is connect with your audience. So connect over being really clear about what you're doing today, what you're talking about, saying hello, introducing yourself, those types of things. So that's connect. Number 2 is clarify. Clarify why this thing is important. Clarify why they are smart to be worried about it. Clarify what the issue actually is. Then deliver. Deliver something tangible. Deliver content that's helpful. Deliver on your promise. Deliver something practical they can go and implement. Deliver really revolutionary information. Deliver a solid, structured process that they could follow. Number 4, punchline. What is the point here? What is the so can you see? What is the light bulb moment that you are trying to facilitate? Make sure it's mapped out and it's very clear and obvious to people. And then finally, where relevant, a call to action. If they want to do something else, if they want to take the next step, if they want to keep working with you, if they want to dive deeper, what should they do? So you can see it's a really simple structure, but it's a really effective one that applies to content, whether its job is just reach or its job is conversion or its job is all 4 of those stages: reach, nurture, invite, and connect. Now, the number 1 driver of whether your content does its job or not is if it's niched appropriately. Being very clear and specific on what your niche is, who this content is for, and how it needs to message to reach them is a powerful foundation that most people skip over when they're first starting their business. So if you would like to make sure you've got your niche sorted and make sure that you've got the strategies to convert that into deeply resonant messaging that does its job in your content, I would love for you to come and check out my free Nail Your Niche training. I'll make sure the link is with the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/250. As always, if you want to continue the conversation, ask questions, or share light bulbs, head on over to the Heart-Centered Soul-Driven Entrepreneurs Facebook group. Use #PodcastAha. Let me know that you've been listening to episode number 250 and share your questions, light bulb moments, or whatever has come up for you as a result of this episode. Until next time, I've been Tash Corbin. Thank you for listening to the Heart-Centered Business Podcast, and I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.